Nerissa is an award-winning media strategist, business coach, and author of Live Fearless, a Christian entrepreneur's guide to life and business with more than 30 years in media. She's also the founder of NAji, an e-learning platform, editor of Discover Montserrat, and co-host of Flourish, the wellness podcast for Caribbean women. She's passionate about helping women and entrepreneurs live boldly, overcome fear, and thrive. And I came across her book recently, which I just loved. It's amazing. There's reflection questions after each chapter to deepen the understanding and the applications in your own life. It's super rich, it's super on point. It's really a true testament to what life looks like when you're trusting in and walking with God. And I've made so many notes that we are likely not going to get through them all, but let's see where we get to. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to come and hang out with you for a bit.
Yeah, this is great. So, my first point, the first thing I noted down when I was reading your book is the idea of that how you do one thing is how you do everything. Um, just how like life mirrors things all around. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that idea?
Often we want to live from the outside first, but we are spirit beings first. And so if I remember a quote from one of the first books I ever wrote was, I needed to be the love that I wanted to receive. So if I'm trying to be as a woman, if you want to feel sexy, you don't have to wait till a guy says you're sexy or even to put on something that you think is sexy. You have to have sexy thoughts, right?
Yes.
So the same way with wealth. And funny enough, one of the things I wrote down today, it came to me very as I got up this morning, it was just there, is you are deserving of more wealth, you know? And I was like, why am I hearing that? And it was because I recognize it's very easy to declare it. I can, have all the scriptures and stuff, but do I really believe that I deserve it? And
Mhm.
so here was this message coming to say, you need to own this. You deserve, you are deserving of more wealth. You can manage more wealth. You're a good recipient. It's not going to be wasted because you get it. So I think we have to believe first before we are going to see the manifestation of it.
Mhm.
Often we think if I go off and do that thing, then I'll get it. But you have to believe you have it already for it
Yeah.
to even come to you. Yeah.
Like step into it like if it's true, which it
Yes.
is, which it is.
The
I don't
Bible
know.
says, as a man thinketh, so is he. So we
Yes.
have to think about that first and believe that's who we are before we are going to be able to live it out.
Yes. And have you ever heard or seen or like quantum time, the idea that like time future, time present, time past don't really exist, like it's all one. And I know like in God, like God doesn't have time. He doesn't operate in the time that we have. We created what we know as time. So
Yes.
for me, it's like if you can't see that, if you can't step into that possibility of who you are or who you are supposed to become, then you're it's like you're in the illusion that there's a past, present, and future, right? Like you're in the
Hmm.
illusion of the past, and most people seem to be dwelling in that illusion of the past instead of and you speak about that in the book later too, just of grabbing the future instead of sitting in the past.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. I think fear is one of those things that likes to keep us either living in the past or living in the
Yeah.
future. So we're either living in shame and regret for things that have happened already, or we're anxious about what's going to happen. And neither one of those extremes is where we need to be. We need to absolutely be present in the moment. And that was something I had to learn because I was always thinking about how was I going to fix mistakes I made or what would happen if and then if and then whatever, versus saying, hey, I'm here now. I was created for the now, and so if I am here now, it means I absolutely have what is necessary to survive and be the best person I can be right now. And that for me was game changing, to start just living in the moment and believing that all of the everything from the past has actually supported me to be here now. And the person I am now is who is going to prepare me for whatever is going to come next. But I can't live in the future and I can't live in the past. I absolutely need to be present in the moment and trust that God is with me through every moment.
Yes. And I mean, it's not about living in the future, but having an idea of what that future looks like so that you can embody it now. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Very true. Very true.
Amazing. You also talk about creating an environment for success. And I know you use the example of junk food or bringing junk food in the house. And that was actually my exact experience. I realized that when there was junk food in the cabinet, it's like I couldn't concentrate on what I was doing. It was calling me, come and get me. But when it wasn't there, I went about my day and I didn't even miss it or think about it. And so I made the decision, you know what? I don't want any junk food in the house. I don't want that to come through the door. Um, what's a practical way other than junk food that you found of clearing your surroundings for success?
Oh my gosh, but that's actually a really good one
I know.
because I've had the same issue, and especially for like having kids in the house and you want to have treats and things for them. But then if they, children, and after a while they don't want something, and then you almost feel, oh, I should eat that then rather than it go to waste. So suddenly all the junk is in your body. Another way would just be your environment. In terms of your room space, just keeping it organized so that it's clear. I think I used the example of the chair. I used to have this iron board. Because I hated taking up and folding it down, so it would just stay in a nice corner. But then it's going to end up with the keys, it's going to end up with the mail, it's going to end up with the clothes and other things that you'll eventually get to. And we all have that chair or that iron board or the drawer that's just filled with all the stuff that we kind of pack away the things that we promise ourselves we will look at, but they're usually a reflection of things that we don't want. So whether it's envelopes of bills, your bills that you don't actually want to face because you're thinking, I don't actually have the money to pay this, so I'm just going to leave it there, you know. And any kind of paperwork, things that remind us that we actually need to make decisions that can position us for the future and prepare us. Often we will find a way to hide them away versus dealing with them. So if we want to be prepared for success, we need to actually be willing to, whether it's face our numbers, face the chair, organize our room, because I mean, like it or not, everybody loves walking into a space that feels clean. It's better yet if somebody else cleaned it, you
Yes.
know? But there is something about a nice, pristine space that just feels relaxing. You can breathe better. In your business, one of the examples I love is if I were going on a trip, I would make sure I have my passport ready. I need to know what that country requires me to have to be able to get in. Do I need a visa? Do I need to get a yellow fever shot and all these different things? You prepare for what it is you want to happen. And we would do it if it was something we were looking forward to excitedly. And so whatever the area that we want to achieve the success, we need to be willing to break it down into the little pieces. As okay, what are the steps that are going to get me there, and how do I position that? And so maybe I don't even have the money yet for the trip, but I at least know, okay, I need to raise $1,000 so that I'm going to do that. At least now I can begin to activate that energy that says, okay, we either need to sell $1,000 worth of books, or we need to get a client that's going to give us ticket money, or find a different way that you're going to be able to do this to achieve the goal that you're after. Uh, and I think if we're open to receiving the fact that success is ours to have, it's not something that we're trying to get and we're not deserving us, but it's absolutely ours to have, then I think that creates the energy for the very things that you want to come to you with lots of ease. I think that's one of the things I learned, is that the minute I just say, you know what, I really think that would be cool if I could go on that trip and do that thing, and just creating an excitement about how I would feel doing it, begins then to create the energy for that. Sometimes it'll be something like, hey, what's going on? I was just thinking, there's this thing coming up. I always remember there was an event, and this was years ago. There was a church event that we were supposed to go to. Everybody else was going. I was a young entrepreneur. I didn't have the money for it. And all I said was like, God, it really would be cool if I could go, and that was all I said. And about 2 days later, my dad calls and he says, hey, would you like to go to the convention? And I said, yeah, I would, but I just can't afford it. He said, yeah, you're going to need to come up with some money. I said, yeah, I figured. He said, it's going to cost you $7. I was like, what? Seemingly, there was another woman that was supposed to go on the trip, but she bought a trip and she couldn't get the refund back. And she was willing to give it to somebody else who could go. They would just need to pay the $7 difference to make the changes. And I was just like,
Wow.
I was just blown away. And I got to go on the trip, and it was amazing. So I've learned that if I try too hard, then I'm actually pushing away. I'm not living in a place of faith that I can
Yeah.
actually have that thing. I'm afraid. I want it, but I don't think I deserve it. I want it, but I don't think I can have it. And or somebody else might block me, and all the things that we create around ourselves to make us not feel too bad if it doesn't work out. We
Yes.
put a lot more energy sometimes into protecting ourselves from it not working out rather than into believing that we can actually have the thing that our heart is desiring.
Yes. And sometimes it's like this or better. Sometimes we block ourselves because we think it has to happen a certain way. Like I have to come
Yes.
up with the money and I have to work and I have to sell stuff or whatever it is, versus maybe there's a way that this can happen that is not on my radar, a better way, just like the way that it happened for you. But you also talk about reframing the like circumstances or your environment or what's going on. And when you were talking about bills, that popped into my mind because often we see bills negative, I can't say that, negatively, like something you have to pay and maybe something that you feel like it is expensive and you have a hard time paying it. But rarely do we look at it as an opportunity, like we're
Mhm.
receiving something for this, like to be thankful. Like if you're receiving a bill or an invoice, it's because you've received some kind of service for it. And I think when we reframe it, that opens up possibilities too.
Absolutely. I agree with you there. Think of it. I remember a time dreading when the bills showed up and things like that. And I had to learn. There was a time when I was pretty much homeless. I was living in a community center with my kids. So there were no bills because somebody else was doing that. And after that happened, I learned that having a bill says I was engaged in life. It meant I
Yes.
was generating, I had life. I had a rent to pay, I had a light bill to pay. It meant that things were happening and I wasn't just being a charity case, for somebody else. And we get to be a part of this journey of life. And so I had to get to that point where I was excited to get a bill and say, oh, you know what? This means, because it also said to me, even if it came and I didn't feel like I had the money at the moment to pay the bill, I knew that here was a new opportunity that was going to be created for some magic to happen, for me to be able to create that money in the business or in some other way that it was going to be able to take care of. But yeah, but bills tell us that we're engaged. It doesn't always mean that we failed. A bill is
Exactly.
a sign that we are part of the human existence and we're contributing in one way or the other. And like you say, we have received a service. So it's only fair that that person be, or the organization be, compensated for what we benefited from.
Yes, absolutely. And I loved how back onto food, you were talking about like binging food
Hmm.
not being enjoyable. And I really love that because years ago, many, many moons ago, I was in a pretty toxic relationship, and that person didn't want me to get fat, so they restricted my food intake, and I found
Ooh,
myself like locking myself in a closet and just like shoving down food because I was hungry. I'm like
mhm.
overachiever, high
Yeah,
metabolism. I'm always on the go, so it's like, I'm not fat, like I need fuel, right? But
right,
so it
right.
was like I'm binging, and that was the first time in my life. I'd never had any issues with food or anything before, and then I realized like this isn't enjoyable. Like that's not how I want to be eating food locked in a closet by myself. And I wasn't tasting the food. Like I was just so hungry that I was just, shutting
Right.
it down. So I really like that you touched on that because that's such an important thing, that the distinguishing between um, enjoying food, right? Because like food can be so delicious, right? Like to take the
Yeah,
time to enjoy it versus it's like filling this need and you're just shoving food, but you're not really enjoying that
right.
gift of this food, this nourishment.
Yeah. I think I always say that food and the two things that most women think they can control are the hair on their head and what they put in their mouths, And so food becomes one of the ways that we actually use to either cover up our pain or to just distract us from other things, and we miss the opportunity that food is supposed to be nourishment. And I think and also if you're a parent, and you're dealing with food on the go. So you're eating as you're trying to get the kids out of the house. Like for me, I was always snacking on everything, or I was finishing the kids' leftovers and stuff like that. And so food was always like an interruption I need to eat. So it wasn't a conscious act that here is something that is going to help me serve my family better, serve my gift better.
Mhm.
It was just an interruption. And because I treated it that way, then it was something that I neglected at times, or things that I overindulged in at the wrong times. And so it overall, when we're living a life of fear, where there are all these different areas where we're just not slowing down and paying attention, then we miss the opportunities to just enjoy these moments. So even if you're going to take 5 minutes to eat, it's 5 conscious minutes that you can take to say, you know what, God, I'm thankful that I have something to eat. I'm thankful that maybe the kids are in bed or they're off at school, and you're just going to enjoy these 5 minutes of quiet, to just nourish your body well. And if it's time for a dessert, because it's time you're treating yourself, you can celebrate a nice dessert because you're not overindulging in it. It's not because you need to reward yourself because you had a tough week. And so
Mhm.
now you need to sit there and eat a whole pint of ice cream to compensate for how bad you felt all week. It now becomes just a nice treat that you're having, and then you can leave the rest there,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah. Just being conscious of, is this enjoyable? Am I enjoying this, the flavors and the nutrition, or is it sort of an act of, like I have to, or I feel unworthy, so I'm going to eat a tub of ice cream. Um,
Yeah.
because I know like people, and you use that word a few times, use the word treat, and I think we need to reimagine that word, because is it really a treat if you're putting something in your body that is causing your health to decline? Like it's like if it's
Right.
causing you, like if it's causing stomach upset, or it's causing weight gain that you don't want, or it's, like there's diabetes and cancer and all kinds of health issues now, likely related to the food or the amount of food that we're consuming. So is it
Mhm.
really a treat? Like,
It
should we be
isn't.
using that word?
Uh, You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that was something I had to have a conversation with myself about, because in the book I talk about um, the the diabetes, the struggle with food, and things like that, and having to have this rethinking how I thought about food and what I was putting in my mouth and when.
Mhm.
And often a cookie or ice cream or whatever was a treat, because you've had a tough week, whether like we're talking about you got tons of bills. It's the kids, it's the boyfriend or the husband that's been neglectful and all these other ways. And so you're looking for these moments of sweetness in your life to kind of compensate for all the other areas you don't feel that you're not feeling loved in, that you're not feeling appreciated. And so we're putting this stuff in our mouth, but we're harming ourselves further. So
Mm-hmm.
we now need to reimagine, what does a treat look like for me? It could
Yeah.
be just taking a walk in the middle of the day, you know, to say, guess
Exactly.
what? I get to go outside right now. I could get up because I work for myself. I don't actually have to punch the clock at 5. I could decide I'm going to take a walk in the park. That's going to be the treat that's going to fuel me because the sun is out. You know, I can get in 5,000 steps or how much of the steps in that moment. And those are things we have to consciously do, but we've got to slow down enough to assess all of these different things. And often we don't want to do that because we might come up, we feel we will come up lacking rather than see it as an opportunity to say, hey, I can actually reimagine and reframe all of these different moments in my life and allow them to mean something different so that I can gain a different result. Because sitting and eating a bag of cookies as a treat at the end of a week may not be the best thing for somebody who's got a sugar challenge.
Exactly. It seems like it's harmful to us. Like it just doesn't feel right to me to think, oh, I'm going to eat a bag of potato chips and call that a treat when it's causing me harm. When I
Right.
could reach for a mango and that's sweet and delicious and whole
Mhm.
and that nourishes me and I love eating mangoes, so why wouldn't I like reach for that better alternative,
Yeah.
especially on a
And I
small
mean,
island if it's available?
yeah, and I think if just to stick a point there in terms of with the mangoes now, for somebody with diabetes, a mango is not a good idea because mangoes are
Oh,
super sweet, you know.
yeah.
So it
But it's
really
true, but are they reaching for something worse?
exactly, exactly. So it's like what's the balance of the two things? But the mango is always going to be better because you don't
Yeah,
actually need it's one, you might be able to get it free, or you can just have a nice little piece, you know. There's some people who will eat the skin of the mango as well, and they'll tell you that's good for you. You can have the mango bush as well. You drink it, it's good for tea. It's actually a good for diabetic medicine as well. So
really?
maybe
There you
along with the
go.
eating a piece of the mango, you also make sure you have some mango tea. But yeah, it's about slowing down enough for us to reassess the things that we're doing and say, okay, I actually can do, I want to do differently because there's more I want to achieve. God loves me. He's given me a body that's going to be mine. I don't get to change it and, you know, repair it. We can't just go out and buy body parts at the store. So we need to take care of what we have in the best way possible.
Yes. I'm like pausing because sadly that time is coming. But anyway, we don't want to go there. You talk about just enough thinking, um, and you link that to like small thinking or scarcity thinking, and how, how that kind of keeps our options, our world small, how you can't see possibility when you're in that mindset of like, as long as I have enough or there's a lack. Can you tell me a bit more about your thinking on that?
Yeah. For people who live in survivor mode, and especially for people of the African diaspora, whose legacy that most remember, and we've had a legacy long before enslavement, but for many people it seems to start at that. All they've known is this survivor mode, and so, and if you know, we're talking now, we've got all these hurricanes and different things happening,
Mhm.
and so there are a lot of people that just live in that moment of, I just need to get through today. I just need to pay this bill and everything will be okay. I just need to get my kids to this next moment and then, you know, and we create this kind of algebraic equation about if this happens, then that happens, then I'll be cool.
Mhm.
And so we're only ever thinking about the moment because we haven't slowed down enough or life just hasn't given us permission to say, hey, there is more than that. So one of the things that I try to share in the book is that if we understand that God created us to be fruitful, to multiply, to govern and reign, he also has provided everything we need to do that. He
Mhm.
also says he will give us the desires of our heart, meaning he also will tell us what to desire, and his desires for us and his plans for us are good, meaning you can ask for more because there is more to have, there's more to receive, and you have to believe that. And then when you can believe that, then you can begin to stretch yourself into seeing that there is more than this moment of, I just need to get through today. Because we were supposed to be able to impact the lives of others. And you can't do that if you only ever have enough for yourself. If you're
Mhm.
only still scraping by to just pay the bills and make sure the kids have what they need, God wants us to be amplifying everything that we are so that we can impact the community around us. Even if you don't have kids, you're not meant to live a life where you're the only person in your life that's supposed to benefit from you. He wants us to have impact in our families, our communities, in the wider world. You could be impacting people on the other side of the world that you've never met if we're open to believing that we have something of value within us that can be amplified and that can actually solve real problems.
Mhm. And that goes back to earlier when we were talking about you want to live for the present, yes. So it's not wrong, those people that are living each moment for the moment. But what the piece that's missing is having that future thinking, like what is life going to look like in 10 years so that I can align myself to that person and be on the way to that. So it's like, yes, live in the moment. I think that's amazing that there's people who can do that. And you want to have your orientation to something bigger because you
Sure.
were made for more.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I have to believe I was made for more so that in where I am now in the present, I can be open to receive this more that's going to benefit my future. The future benefit can't come if the current person isn't open to receiving it. The future is only going to be a reflection of whatever I am doing now, whatever I'm believing
Yes.
now. And if I only believe that I am deserving of just enough, or if I'm acting as a just enough life is a good enough life, then I am not going to be one of those people who will be in the future making an impact that's going to benefit generations to come.
Yes. Yeah, one way I think about it is every decision in this moment is what affects my future. So we're always creating habits based on the decisions we're making, and we're always
Yes,
going to be the person based on the choices that we're making right now. So every minute, and
absolutely.
it goes back to even the food that we are choosing to eat. If you choose to
Mhm.
eat the chips instead of the mango or the mango leaf tea because that's healthier. Right? Like you're choosing that tomorrow you will be the person who
We
eats.
will have both. We'll have the mango, then drink the tea.
Yes. Right? But like that decision for me is like when I make a decision, I know that if I choose today to sit on the couch and just eat chips and binge watch, then I'm more likely to do that tomorrow because that's the choice I'm making today impacts my tomorrow. But if today I
Yes,
decide to, reach for something healthy, a vegetable or a fruit instead, and to go for a walk, I know that I'm more likely now to do that tomorrow. So
absolutely,
that
absolutely. Yes,
that's how I align. All right. So you also talked about, which I really loved, documenting wins, celebrating achievements. And I have like a women's circle, and that's something that we do in it to celebrate. And I like them to think about even like the smallest thing, something that they would not typically think of a celebration because often we think, oh, I don't really have anything to celebrate, but there's always something to celebrate. Like even getting out of bed in the morning is something to
yes,
celebrate. You could have chosen to stay in bed. Going for a walk after a meal is something to celebrate. You could have chosen to just sit on the couch. Like there's all these little things that other people might not have chosen, but you did celebrate even that because that expands, right? When whatever you're focusing on expands. So
absolutely, Absolutely. And if we can find the moments of gratitude in that, and I think if for anybody who's ever suffered with depression or anything like that, when you know the fight it is to get out of bed,
Mhm.
for people who do get out of bed, that's a big win because there
Mm,
is another woman or man somewhere who didn't get out of bed because they just didn't think they had the capacity to. So I think when we can even be empathetic about others and recognize, oh, I never thought I take it for granted how I just jump up out of my bed every day. But that's a big deal because there are people who can't do that without help or without medicine and things like
mhm.
that. Um, and yeah, I think it's really important to start with the small things because if we can't see the blessing in the little, then we absolutely won't see it when it's nice, when it's real big. We'll look at the big thing and say, "Oh my gosh, this just looks like more problems," and we forgot it was the blessing that we'd actually prayed for a year or two
Exactly.
ago that we're now sitting inside.
Exactly. And also you referenced the idea that and it's not the exact numbers you say, but that if you can't give $1 now when you have 10, then you won't be able to give $1 million when you have 10 million because you
Hmm.
haven't set that habit along the way.
Right.
But most of us think like when I have a lot or when I have more, then I'll be able to give. But really, it
Hmm.
starts with no, you're supposed to give now. Like God says to give from what you have, not from your abundance. So whatever you have right now is sufficient for you to give, and you create that habit so that when you do have the jackpot, whatever it is that you want, you are
Hmm.
still in that mentality.
Yeah, it's going to be way easier to do it. It's a muscle that you have to
Mhm.
grow, you know. There's a scripture, it's the one that talks about that God loves a cheerful giver. And in the context of churches, often, everybody's like, oh, you've got to give your tithe, you've got to give your 10%, or they're asking you to give some big offering, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is painful. I know you're saying that I should give this, but this really hurts because you're thinking about all the bills and things like that. But that scripture, God loves a cheerful giver, simply means you've got to be able to give it with joy. So if you're not joyful about handing over that offering or that 10% tithe because you're not there yet, give the 1%.
Yes,
Build a
exactly.
muscle with the 50 cents before you can say, okay, I can give you $5. And so again, if we work with the little that we have, you say, you know what? I can't, I know everybody's supposed to give $10, but I know I can comfortably give you $1 and I can handle that. You do that. And then as God blesses you, because he will, because he honors the
Mhm.
sincerity of the gifts that we give, then as time goes, you're going to be able to give more. You just probably need to build a habit of giving that $1. And you may be doing it for a year or 2 years or 5 years. And then one day you say, you know what? I think I could give $1.50, and you stretch yourself to do that. And over time it will grow. To try to believe that we're going to suddenly have these new capacities when we haven't done the work is not how it works. We actually will show up. And money is one of those things that shows us exactly who we are,
Yeah.
um, when we have it and when we don't.
Yes. No, it's absolutely about building a muscle. And I started just donating to charities early. Like I think I was 16
Hmm.
when I just started donating to charities. I felt called to, I guess, and it wasn't because I had money. It was just do it, and it's like a muscle that I've definitely developed. And a few years ago, actually, I felt this calling on my heart to donate to this water project, but it was $25,000, and I didn't have $25,000, and I kept just feeling that pressure of like, when are you going to do it? Give the money. What's going on? Give the money. And one day I just kind of, what do you want me to do? Like put it on my credit card? And the answer came back, yes. I was like,
Ooh.
what? So I did. And I'm not advocating that people necessarily do this. I mean, like
Mhm.
I felt pressure, right? And I
Yeah.
it's like I was told to do this. I put it on my credit card, and the next month that credit card was paid on time in full, and it did not change my life in any way. Like it's just crazy how. to me, giving. And when I look back, I've never been lacking. Like even in those times where it's like I don't have this, but I gave
Mhm.
it. I've never lacked.
Yes.
Like it's never changed my life. As like not
Yeah.
changed my life in a negative way. I mean, obviously it's changed my life
Mhm.
in a positive way.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
that's
absolutely. And I think we would, one of the things I do with my children is I just encourage the same thing. And I said, fine, even if you don't have a church that you're committed to giving to, find something that you're interested in that you would love to serve in that way. So again, I want them to have that muscle
mhm.
of the habit of saying you've got to be a giver as well. You've received so much in so many different ways. You must also be a giver because that balance is important. And yes, there is no gift that goes out that God does not honor in one way or the other. And if it doesn't show up in your life, it will show up in your children's life as well in the future.
Absolutely. And then you make the point, which is super important for people to understand, of how poverty mentality can't coexist with wealth mentality, the same as, anger can't coexist when you're joyful, when you're
Mhm.
appreciative, you're not seeing the lack. Like, so if you just adopt that mindset, the other one just fades away, right? If you're not.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, that can feel very difficult when everybody else around you is comfortable with that poverty mentality and the situations around you seem to welcome you to stay that way. And so you're going to feel like the odd one out because you're thinking these wealthy thoughts, you're having plans and dreams of investing and giving $25,000 to charities, and everybody's like, no, we just trying to make sure we could get to Friday and maybe go to the bar and have a good time. And so you're often fighting culture trying to adopt these other new ideas. But in doing that, I love that God will allow you to find the people who can support you in this. And now that we have socials, so we can go online and we can connect with people who are practicing and working towards shifting their mindsets to attract more wealth, to think about increase rather than the past and the things that have been keeping them back. And this is what you want, but the two things can exist, because when then you're wondering, now God is not an order of confusion, and when you're thinking, okay, but why am I still not seeing success? It's because there are seriously areas in your belief system that is not allowing you to attract the opportunities that are going to lead you more to this wealth. And everything is a journey, everything is timing, and there you can make a decision today, and then you've just got to continue to practice and stand on that promise, that belief that wealth is yours to have, that provision is yours, that you're going to be, that you are a good success as God promised that we would be, and that you can live a fearless life.
Absolutely. I love that. Live a Fearless Life. I love the title of your book. And there, I mean, we barely scratched the surface, but we're over time. So I just want to say, for anyone who wants to connect with Nerissa, I'm going to drop her links in the comments. So she's also offering a free course for fearless living, and she's offering personalized assessments through her fearless quiz. So check those out. And I really want to thank you, Nerissa. It was such a pleasure. I hope to continue the conversation with you off of this in the future, because, again, it was such an empowering book. I loved it. It was great work. Thank you so much for that gift to the world.
Yes, thank you so much